I'm tired of driving around in that funny-looking car. I need a new set of wheels. What do you got, cameraman? Well, we have this little red number. Did a lot of cross-country racing. Nah. Or maybe instead we have this one. Once used to drive around the Hawaiian Islands. Little too small. Well, then maybe something a little more adventurous is in your line. How about this one? Ran through the running block down south. Nah. It's been done. Okay, then I probably couldn't suggest one to you that could drive itself. Sorta defeats the purpose, wouldn't you say? Alright. Then how about instead we go for something classy and sporty? Nah. Alright. You're picky. Maybe something a little more militarized. Preferably one that doesn't fall apart. Okay, then. You want something real souped up? How about this one? Has its own battle mode. I'll take it. Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. We're back with another Pretender from the Generation 1 era. And this time around we're taking a look at the other vehicle Pretender. As I covered the Decepticon one years ago, we're now going to take a look at the Autobot Pretender vehicle, the Squadron Leader Gunrunner. Gunrunner was released in late 1988. As the checklists throughout the bulk of 1988 would have this character and several of the other Pretenders grayed out with "coming soon" listed in their name. It wouldn't be until mid to late in the year before most of the remaining Pretenders would finally be unveiled and available for purchase. Gunrunner here was, of course, one of them, and unfortunately they wouldn't be on the shelves very long. They would probably still be in 1989, but they would not be featured on the 1989 checklist. A slow deviation to moving the toys away from the 2 years that they normally were on the shelf to 1 year. Or at least they were showing that in the checklist. The store shelves may have said differently. But that would be a trend that would shortly follow, as by '89 they were shifting the Transformers to be single year only. And by 1990, Hasbro would also incorporate that for its other boys' toy line, G.I. Joe. At any rate, Gunrunner is a strange character in the fact that the various media that have been done featuring the toy do depict him differently. Hasbro writes the character up as being a superhero in reverse. That he's basically brave and courageous and all that while he's in the shell, but shy and insecure when he's out of it. So it kind of paints the character up as being rather silly, or basically just another reworking of the bio they used for Cloudburst. The IDW Comics, who also put out the More Than Meets the Eye guidebooks, suggests a different reasoning behind this, in the fact that Gunrunner suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder after being forced to abandon his squad to try to get reinforcements. And as he was the only one in the battle to be a pretender, he had the extra armor on his shell to protect him, thus making him the only survivor of that battle. Since then, Gunrunner will not take permanent leadership of any squad, because he doesn't want to grow attached to his soldiers and then be forced to witness them dying again. And in a lot of ways, especially given the current understandings of what soldiers experience through the horrors of war, and even to some degree the first responders that we send out to investigate brutal murders, or even the firefighters that go out and see victims burned horribly, you have to understand that these are sites that are not easy to just brush off. No amount of training in the world can prepare somebody to handle these disturbing horrors. At any rate, moving on with the toy, we're going to set the shell aside for just a moment. So we'll show off the play feature with it in a little bit. But let's take a look at Gunrunner himself, and as a robot, he does look pretty solid and sturdy. But of course, he also has the addition of having the extra missiles attached to his shoulders. So that definitely makes him ready for battle. And more than likely, a lot of the kids ignored what it was said about him on that card backer anyways. Let's take a look at Gunrunner's articulation before we do too much. And as you can see, we can turn his head from left to right, so that's a nice improvement over many Transformers. The arm can be rotated at the shoulder all the way around with ease, and of course his arms can be shifted in front of him. I like that. That's better. This is a family channel. We don't want to promote anything like that. But the arm can be brought out onto the chest. It's mainly for transforming him, but you do have that as an option. He does have a joint at his hips that allows the legs to be brought up. And he can also bend his legs at the knees. But since his legs are fused together, you will do it to both of them at the same time. So as we say, it's an interesting looking little toy. But the big thing with these Pretender vehicles was they did have a mode that does allow you to insert the robot into the shell for an added bit of playability. And of course, to do that, we've got to remove the turret off of the back of the toy. Gunrunner's weapons need removed. The gun and the missiles can be mounted onto the vehicle. The gun would go right here, and the missiles will attach here to the back of the vehicle. But you can open up the canopy, and we just position Gunrunner here into a seated position. And once you shift the orange piece in the shell out of the way, Gunrunner can be seated inside. Just exactly like that. And while it is a decent feature, to say the least, it's not one I think anybody's really proud of, since it leaves off the rear turret, so we can't use it for this mode. And since of the way his arms are situated, The way the arms are dealt with and positionable, you can't close the canopy on them. So it's kind of limiting in reality. Plus, if you were to look at this from a military standpoint, which it's a little hard to because it's a toy, it shouldn't apply, but there are people that do this anyway. If you look at it from a military standpoint, he's still leaving his vital areas exposed to enemy fire. So, not exactly the best idea. But we'll take a look at how to put him in the shell in just a moment. The first thing we're going to want to do is transform him into his alternate mode. And to do that, first thing we got to do is get his arms straight down, just exactly like that. And then you will fold his arms over onto the chest. Then we'll turn him around and you will fold up his legs like so. And then comes the next part. You will attach this large black turret onto him by connecting the posts back here, these thin pieces of plastic, onto the robot's shoulder, into the shoulder area, right in here, so the black all lines up. Then, of course, once you've done that, you can simply fold down the wings and fold out the nose. And now he is a jet. But of course he does have room for some added firepower, because the missiles can be attached to the bottom. Just got to line up the back post and then in everything goes. And there you have it. He's in jet mode. And while the jet mode itself, at least looked at from the top, from this angle it doesn't look too bad. It's unfortunately, when you look at it from most every other angle, it looks stupid. Especially given the fact that the robot itself is barely involved in it. Just pop that off, pop him out of it, and it's at least a little thinner. It's a little thinner and it looks a little bit better. So, I have no idea what they were thinking when folks at Takara designed this, folks, because simply put, that is terrible, to say the least. Alright, now let's say we want to put Gunrunner here inside the shell. And once you have him back in robot mode, you basically have to fold his arms onto his chest. They say you have to rotate the head all the way. I have no idea why. But anyway, we get the shell out here. Pop this bad boy open. And then basically he is inserted like so inside it. And then we just close it up like that. And then now we can attach the weapons by first mounting the gun here on the side panel. Attach the missiles onto the back of the vehicle. And then, of course, mount the turret gun on top. Has a little wheel in the back that should line up with the hole on the toy here. Just push it down until it snaps. Still allows for some rotation. So you at least do have that going for it. But it also, as it rolls, you can see the guns do rotate. I don't know why it shifted in that direction all of a sudden, but apparently it does that. It'll go from firing forward to firing to the one side. Let's see, we'll turn it to that side and see if we can get it to shift again. Of course, now it doesn't want to do that, but at any rate, we'll take a look at the shell here. It's done up as a little red car. I do like the fact that the front bumper is a little more reinforced, and it does have a winch and tow cable. Unfortunately, non-functional. Some little exhaust pipes here underneath it. Fake doors on the side, which are kind of ridiculous. All in all, it's not bad, but it's also certainly not anything worth writing home about. Let's take a look now at Gunrunner's accessories. We'll, of course, start with the shell. So you can get a good look at the shell without any pieces on it. And of course, as you can imagine, the windscreen here is probably the most difficult thing to keep intact on the toy, because it is made of very thin plastic. And as you can imagine, it does break very easily if it's played with roughly. And then, of course, we have the large cannons, which the instructions describe as a dual electrostatic cannon. It has the special gear here at the bottom. This is what allows it to move the guns when it's in motion, if you line it up properly. Of course, you can always just do it with your fingers. And then, of course, we have his gun, which they just describe as a rifle. It's kind of a science fiction-y looking rifle, so not much to expect there. And then lastly, we have two of these missile units, which the instructions describe as 2 energy plasma missiles, which doesn't make a lot of sense because plasma is energy, and it would not necessarily be fired as a missile unless they've somehow found a way to contain it. And of course, on the opposite side, they're hollow. So I guess the plasma's leaked out. At any rate, that's Gunrunner's accessories. Moving right along now, we will take a look at his instructions. And as was typical of Pretender instructions, the first page would be the shell, and then the second page would feature the robot. And then you get the listings there of all the pieces, and they show how to make him into an attack robot. And then we start off with how to transform him from a robot into the jet, which that, of course, carries over onto the backside, And then we go into how to load him into the attack vehicle. And then how to set him up to be the assault cruiser. And then, of course, you get all the sticker placement. And then at the end, the usual clip your robot points and your tech specs. Speaking of the tech spec, we happen to have Gunrunners right here. It's done up in a red background to show that he's an Autobot, and even lists Autobot above him. It gives his name as Gunrunner. His function is Squadron Leader. His motto is, "The truth wrapped in a lie is still a lie." A superhero in reverse, daring and defiant when inside outer vehicle, but shy and insecure when out on his own. Armored outer vehicle equipped with armored wheels and hydraulic lifters for all-terrain combat capabilities. Gunrunner transforms from robot mode to hypersonic jet with a maximum speed of Mach 5. Equipped with twin-turreted 8mm electrostatic cannons with a range of over 60 miles. Also armed with 2 armor-piercing energy plasma missiles. Armor plating equipped with thermal generators that, quote, burn, unquote, through solid rock. Sounds a bit strange. At any rate, we'll lay the decoder here over the grid, and we'll take a look at his stats. It lists his strength as 7, his intelligence is 9, his speed is 7, his endurance is 6, his rank is 7, his courage is 9, his firepower is 8, and his skill is 7, so he is pretty good at his job. Although I question the courage stat when they say that how different his personality is depending on whether or not he's in the vehicle. That, and when you factor in the post-traumatic stress, you kind of wonder if that's really all that accurate. At any rate, we get down to my final thoughts. What do I think of Gunrunner? Gunrunner as a character is interesting, especially more so now with the rewrite that's been given to him for the comics. It puts a real-world issue and real-world problem front and center into a fictional character. And that makes the character sound a little bit better. The idea of how Hasbro wrote him as a superhero in reverse just comes off as rather dumb. Especially when, as I stated earlier, it sounds very similar to one they used for another Pretender in that same year. So, rather unoriginal thinking on Hasbro's part. As for the toy, unfortunately this one's not as good as Road Grabber, the Decepticon counterpart. I mean, the robot mode, it's not bad. It's actually pretty good, especially when you add in the added articulation with the arms and the missiles on the shoulder. While they look a little bulky and whatnot, it does add a little extra play value to him. Gunrunner's vehicle mode, unfortunately, it's terrible. There's no two ways about that. When all you're doing is just flipping him around a couple of times, and then you add on all the vehicle accessories to it. It's kind of, why is he, with the way that is, why is he even involved? He's almost an over-glorified action master in that sense. The car, for the shell, as it is, the car isn't too bad. When you switch it to the assault carrier mode, and you compare it to the similar one that Road Grabber has a better one. With it being basically a rolling barricade or a rolling shield of sorts. Granted, it's not going to help anybody that gets around. It helps him if anybody gets around him, but it at least still looks more intimidating and imposing. All this is you just put Gunrunner in the driver's seat. And unfortunately to do that, because you can't close the canopy, the car is driving with less weaponry. So all in all, Gunrunner really got the short end of the stick when it comes to the toy design. So, but anyway, that's just my opinion. I'm not going to say he's not totally worth it. I mean, I'm sure some kid back in the 1980s loved playing with this toy. He wasn't one that I had in my collection, unfortunately, at that time, so I can't really say what that child would be thinking. But I'm sure somebody did enjoy him, because he is one of the harder ones to find on the secondary market. At any rate, that concludes my review of the Generation 1 Autobot Squadron Leader Gunrunner. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please leave me a thumbs up here on YouTube. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button down below and join our ranks. Make sure you ring the bell so you'll be notified when I post new content. I ask that you share this video with your friends and fellow collectors. That's what helps this channel grow. And also share your thoughts about Gunrunner in the comments down below. This is Sparkster1701 saying, maybe I should have instead selling him a car, maybe I should have sold him a jet. What do you people think of this one?